Hi everyone! Today in Healthy Togetherness, we're going to be learning about the highly nutritious and the amazingly versatile quinoa. Quinoa is the seed of the Chenopodium quinoa plant. It is often referred to as a grain, but actually it's a seed. It's a small distinction, but to those who are sensitive to grains, quinoa gives them a very good option. Right? There are about 120 known varieties of quinoa, and in the grocery stores, the most common ones you'll find are the white, the red, and the black. The white quinoa is the most mild in flavor of the three, which means it can actually absorb the flavor of whatever it's cooked in very easily. Raw quinoa has a very long shelf life, provided that it's stored in an airtight container and kept in a cool, dry place. With that in mind, feel free to go ahead and buy in bulk to save money. When you're buying quinoa, I recommend taking a note on the package and checking to see if it has the non-GMO certification seal or the USDA organic seal, just to ensure that your quinoa is a naturally grown seed as opposed to a genetically modified product. Quinoa is a very healthy food. In fact, it is so healthy it is often referred to as a superfood. It is rich in vitamins and minerals and has only 222 calories per 1 cup serving, provided that it's cooked in water. Quinoa is a great non-meat source of protein, and it has all 9 amino acids that the body needs but does not manufacture. Quinoa is also high in dietary fiber, which helps to keep you full for a long period of time. Quinoa is a gluten-free food, and so for those who are concerned about their gluten intake, this is a great option. Quinoa is also a complex carbohydrate, which means it takes your body a long time to process this food. This longer processing time gives your body a slower absorption of glucose, which means you have energy for a longer period of time. Glucose is basically the fuel that our cells need to function. Now compare that to a simple carbohydrate like starch, which can be found in white bread, for example. Your body breaks down the starch into glucose very quickly, gets absorbed by your body very quickly, and so you get this spike in your body's blood sugar level. Right? So instead of having a gradual absorption of glucose in your bloodstream, providing you with energy for a long period of time, right? Which quinoa does. Simple carbohydrates give you a spike in energy level, and you get this high and then kind of no energy. Quinoa is a very simple food to cook. The first thing that we have to do is rinse the quinoa. Right? Quinoa has got a natural bitter coating called saponin, which, if it's not rinsed off, will make your end product taste bitter. Saponin is a natural defense mechanism for quinoa, which protect itself from predators like birds. Right? If your packaging of the quinoa says it's already been pre-rinsed, then you can go ahead and skip this step. If it does not say that it's been pre-rinsed, it's very simple to do. You just take your quinoa, put it in a fine mesh sieve, and then run it under cool water until the water runs clear. It's not long, maybe about a minute if that. Right? After the quinoa has been rinsed, put it in a large saucepan and then add 2 cups of hot liquid. Right? For every 1 cup of quinoa, add 2 cups of hot liquid, whether it be water or stock. Right? And then after that, go ahead and bring the water to boil and then reduce to simmer. By the way, bringing to boil and reduce to simmer is a very common cooking technique. Right? So just bring it to boil, reduce it to simmer, and then let your food cook. In the case of the quinoa, let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. You'll know that the quinoa is cooked. It's going to, each individual seed is going to grow a tiny curly tail-like thing from it. And also the quinoa is going to go about 3 times in volume. Bear that in mind when you're choosing your cooking vessel. Right? For 1 cup of raw quinoa, it's going to yield about 3 cups of cooked quinoa. A few more notes about quinoa. Quinoa can be toasted for more flavor. What you do after you rinse the quinoa is you would put the quinoa in a dry saute pan, no oil. And then you would go ahead and put it under medium heat, cook it under medium heat, and you can toss or stir until the quinoa is dry. Then continue to toss or stir until you have this nice nutty aroma coming from it. Right? After the quinoa has been toasted, you cook it like normal. Toasting the quinoa gives it a nice nutty flavor. Right? And then cooked quinoa will last in the refrigerator can be kept in the refrigerator for about 7 days. All right, enough academics. Let's get cooking. The first demonstration of cooking quinoa we're going to do is actually a recipe that I got from my friend. Thank you very much, Jessica, Monica, and Jay, for this recipe. I really appreciate it. So this recipe is a shrimp and tomato quinoa salad. Right? First thing we're going to do is rinse our quinoa. So I have this will serve about 2 people. So I've got about half a cup of quinoa here. We're going to go ahead and rinse it. And all you do is turn your tap on cool running water and just let it rinse. That's that. Put it in a large cooking vessel. Remember that the quinoa does expand about 2 to 3 times the volume of the raw quinoa. Right. So keep in mind that with 1 cup of quinoa, we're going to need about 2 cups of hot liquid. I have here half a cup of quinoa, so we're going to need 1 cup of hot liquid. And for the liquid, we can usually use water or stock, but water doesn't really add any kind of flavor to the party. So I chose to use clam juice because we have a shrimp theme going on here. So I'm going to be using about 8 ounces of clam juice for this. I have it already simmering here. Now I was fortunate enough to find shrimp, right, with the shell on. It was an easy peel shrimp. So I just go ahead and cook the shell, not the actual shrimp, just the shell along with the stock, and the flavor from the shrimp shell is going to transfer onto the stock. I'm just going to go ahead and run it through the sieve. Now, because I was keeping it warm, I want to make sure I have the 8 ounces of liquid that I need. Some of the water or some of the juice could have evaporated, and I may not have enough. So let's take a look. Good enough. All right. Looking on this side. Okay. I've already tasted the stock or the clam juice. For salt, it does need a little bit more salt, so I'll go ahead and add some salt and pepper to it. The only way you're gonna tell if you need enough salt is actually to taste it. And what we're looking for as far as flavor when you're tasting it is you want it to be a little bit over salted, just so, because the quinoa is going to dilute that saltiness. Anyway, so if it tastes under salted, or if it tastes bland, then your quinoa is going to be bland. Right? If it tastes just right, the quinoa is going to be bland. So you want it just a little bit a little bit over salted, not ridiculously salty, but just a little bit over salted, just so that your quinoa has flavor. Okay, what we're going to do then is we're going to bring this to boil, and then after I hear it boiling, we're going to go ahead and reduce it to simmer and let it cook for about 15 minutes. Okay, while we're waiting for that to happen, let's talk about buying shrimp. When you buy shrimp in a package, what I'm interested in looking for is, you see when it says large or very large or medium, that kind of description doesn't really help us as to what the size is. What you're looking for, what's more helpful I should say, what's more helpful in buying shrimp is the size. When you see 31 through 40, that lets you know how many shrimps you're going to need to make 1 pound of shrimp. So in this case, you're going to need about 30 to 40 shrimps to get 1 pound of shrimp, right? So if the larger that number is, that lets you know that the shrimp is smaller, because then you're going to need more shrimp to make the 1 pound. If that number is lower, say 25 to 30, then that lets you know that these shrimps are bigger, so you're going to need fewer shrimps to make the 1 pound, right? So that's how you would read the package of shrimps. Okay, I hear the water boiling. I'm going to go ahead and reduce this to simmer and let it cook for about 15 minutes. So while we're waiting for our quinoa to cook, let's prepare our vegetables. All right, first thing we're going to do is prepare our asparagus. Now the asparagus, let's put it over here. The asparagus normally has from about halfway on up, very edible, not a problem eating, not very fibrous. But from about the center towards the back here, this has got a very fibrous outer skin, so we need to get that, to remove that. To do that, all we need to do is just take our little vegetable peeler, just take it and then go until about 1 inch from the back. All right. And then this part is normally very tough also, so we just go ahead and break it off and discard it. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and use this much along with our salad for garnish, but the rest of it we're going to actually chop up along with our quinoa. So, watch your finger. Love it. Okay. That's pretty tender. We'll wait a few minutes until the quinoa is more cooked, and then we'll toss it in there. It can be eaten as it is, not too bad. So we'll wait. We'll put that aside. That's ready to go. Next thing we're going to do is prepare our tomato. All you got to do is just remove that core. Don't serve that core. It's just terrible. It's woody. So what to do with your core is you take your paring knife, right? Put your thumb up to about maybe ½ an inch from the tip, right? And grip it carefully. You're not going to cut yourself if you just don't squeeze hard, right? Put your thumb next to the tip, about halfway, ½ an inch to about 1 inch, and then just go down at an angle. So you're going from the outside to the center, all right? And then rotate. And there it goes. And then you get rid of the core. Right. What we're going to do with this is we're going to divide it into 8ths. So 1 into 4ths, and then each 4ths divide into half, and you get your 8. And we're going to go ahead and saute that. Okay, and then we're gonna add basil to it. Basil adds so much aroma and flavor to this dish. I love basil. So to take care of basil, we're gonna do a cut called chiffonade. And what you do is you look for the biggest leaf that you have, all right, and then put all the others in it. Okay, just like that, right? And then you're gonna roll it. Just like that, and then, yeah, and you're gonna make slices. Watch your finger, all right? And there you go. You have little ribbons or chiffon, and that's basically where it gets its name, chiffonade. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put this here. We're done with that. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and take care of our shrimp. This allow about a quarter pound of shrimp per person, per serving rather, and so that comes out to about 8 pieces of shrimp or so. With the bag that we got, the 31 to 40 size of shrimp, it comes out to about eight shrimps per person. So let's go over here and saute our shrimp. About a medium-high heat on that. We'll wait. All right, so I've heated up our pan. Just as a refresher from the saute course, this pan does not have any oil in it yet. All right, and the moment that the drops of water hits the pan, it evaporates immediately, so it's ready. If it kind of sits there for, if the water doesn't evaporate right away, it's not quite ready yet. We're gonna add just enough oil to coat the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to go ahead and toss our shrimp in. Salt, pepper, shrimp does not take very long to cook. You'll notice that it's starting to turn like an orange color on the outside. And with this kind of shrimp, because it's already been kind of cut for us, it's the center that you're interested in. You want it to look a little bit translucent or opaque. You know, just a little bit kind of white, not see-through. Okay, while that's finishing up, I'm going to add our stalks of the asparagus to our quinoa. let it sit there for a moment. I've actually turned the fire off already. All right. Our shrimp is finished cooking. We'll go ahead and put it down. Okay. Now we have all of this stuff that's left on the bottom of the pan, right? That's actually the fond, or the a lot of flavor from the shrimp. So we want to keep that. We're gonna add a little bit of more oil onto this, and then we're gonna go ahead and saute our asparagus first. Again, this is not gonna take very long. Salt, pepper, the asparagus is fine to eat. It's not like it's dangerous to eat when it's not cooked all the way like meat is. What we're trying to do is just kind of heat it through to get rid of that earthy flavor to it. A little bit kind of bitter, grassy flavor. It's not very strong. So maybe about a minute or two being sauteed is all it takes. That looks good enough. Let's go ahead and take it out. Okay. And the last part is we're going to go ahead and saute our tomatoes. Salt and pepper at the bottom of the pan. That way it seasons. Again, this isn't going to take long, so I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit higher. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and let that saute for a minute, and while it's doing that, let's go ahead and prepare our plate. we'll have about a couple of asparagus here, and then we'll just go ahead and dot the shrimp. Shrimps. Stay. Okay, fine. Don't cooperate. All right. Okay. Okay, and there we go. That's our shrimp, tomato, and quinoa salad. Thank you very much, Jessica. I really appreciate the recipe, and my family does too. Thank you. Alright, so that was a pretty simple way to cook quinoa. We just go ahead and put it onto the stove top, put the amount of liquid that we need, boil it, and let it wait for about 15 minutes or so. But there's an even easier way to do this, to cook quinoa. Sometimes quinoa is just going to be like a side item or not, so you don't really want to pay that much attention to it, because you want all of your attention to go to your main course or your main entree, and then the quinoa is just going to be a side item. So here's an easy way to cook quinoa if you have a rice cooker. So what I have here is I already went ahead and rinsed this. This is about 2 cups of quinoa. Right? I'll put it in the rice cooker. I'll plug in the rice cooker. And I have 4 cups of chicken broth that I've warmed up in the microwave, so it's a hot liquid now. And we'll go ahead and stir it. And turn it on. And just let it go, and just let it cook. Now I have tried this recipe with cold stock. It comes out well, but the quinoa is a little bit more soft. I'm not saying it's mushy, but the texture of the quinoa is just a little bit softer, as opposed to putting hot stock in there. I guess it's the extra cooking time or something, but you can try it either way. Again, it's not mushy, it's just a little bit softer. Right? So we'll just go ahead and let this go, and when it's done cooking, we're going to go ahead and fluff it, and then we're going to add lemon juice to it. And that's how simple this quinoa is. Okay, the rice cooker is done. Maybe we should rename it Quinoa cooker.
No.
So, alright, so take a look at this quinoa. Okay. So the quinoa has grown to about 3 times the size of the raw quinoa. And if you'll take a look at it, I don't know if you can see it with the camera, but if you take a look at it, each of the individual seeds has got little tails growing on it. Alright, little curly things. I'll let you know that it's cooked. Right? You can also taste it, of course. But that's kind of like an indication that the quinoa is ready. Right? So we're going to go ahead and take it. Pot holder. It's hot. Alright. Just going to go ahead and put it into this mixing bowl. We're going to fluff it up also. Right. Now, isn't that amazing? That's a lot of quinoa that can be made in a rice cooker easily. Right. So the way that we like it, my wife especially, is we just a little squeeze of lemon. So we're going to go ahead and cut half a lemon here, squeeze it. I've got this amazing talent for choosing the smallest possible bowl for what I need. It's like, I think it's big enough, but no. Seeds. Okay, let me get a spoon and see if that's enough lemon. A little more. There we go. That's good. All right, that's delicious. Hi everyone. Last demonstration for our quinoa demonstration is we're going to make paella. Now, paella is a traditional Spanish rice dish, but we're going to make tradition in 2 ways. One, we're not going to be using rice. We're going to be substituting quinoa for the rice. And 2, we're not going to cook it the traditional way. We're going to make it a little bit more simple and a little bit more friendly for the average home, I guess it would be one way to put it. See, traditionally, paella is cooked in a large paella pan, or in my case, what I use is a very large 15-inch cast iron skillet, right? And the way that paella is traditionally cooked is you would cook everything in one pot. The chicken would go in here, you would cook it, the vegetables would go in here too, all the tomatoes, the sofrito, everything would be cooked in one pot. You're not using any other dish, and then this is actually put onto the table, and everyone just scoops a meal out of it. All right. In fact, here's a couple of pictures of how I do it at home. This is a picture of my goddaughter and I cooking outside, and this is the actual paella. that we've done. Okay. So we're not going to actually use this. We're going to simplify it because I'm kind of assuming that not everyone has a paella pan or a super gigantic 15-inch cast iron skillet. So we're going to put this away. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to use a 9 by 13 inch by 2 inch baking dish. Okay, we'll make it very simple. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we need to do is turn the oven on to 375 degrees. I've got that going right now. Second thing that we need to do is we're going to warm up 6 cups of chicken stock. Right, I've got that going right here. Right, it's warming up right now. And what I've done with the chicken stock is I've added the chicken stock and put 2 bay leaves on there, and I got it warming. I sent it to boil and then reduced it down to a simmer. I also tasted the stock to make sure that it has enough salt. Some of the store-bought stocks, you know, they don't have a lot of salt on them. They're just right to make soups or anything like that. But for the quinoa, we need it to be just a little bit more salty because the quinoa will dilute that flavor. Next step is what I did is I took a chicken. We have about a pound and a half of chicken over here. What you can do is buy skinless and boneless chicken breasts and or chicken thighs. Right? You're going to need that much chicken. What I did over here though is I bought a whole chicken and deboned it and chopped it up into about 1-inch cubes. Right? If you'd like a little bit more information on how to debone a whole chicken so that it's completely has no bones on it, you can go ahead and check out the video on how to cut up a chicken. Right? So we have 1.5 pounds of chicken over here. I've salted and peppered the chicken, seasoned it with that, and let it sit. We're gonna go ahead and saute the chicken. We're not actually gonna cook the chicken. We're just going to give it some browning on the outside. So I've broken up the chicken into little pieces and try to get it into a single layer. The pan is just barely big enough to go for a single layer. And now you can see that all the steam is coming out of it, so we're not going to have a buildup of juices in the bottom. So this will continue to brown. We're just going to leave it alone so it actually has time to brown. Right? So we'll just let it go that way. Let's go back to our vegetables over here and prepare those. What we're going to do next is basically prepare our sofrito, which is a combination of onions, garlic, and tomato. For the tomato, I have had about a pound and a half of tomato here, and what I did is I grated it. Right? So let me show you how that is, how that's done. First of all, let's go ahead and take off the stem end here. Finger on your paring knife about an inch, half an inch to an inch. Just go at an angle and then rotate like that to get this off. Cut the tomato in half, and we're gonna go ahead and get rid of the seeds. Just squeeze the seeds out. Right, not a lot of seeds. That's good. If there are any seeds remaining, not a big deal. Not very much. Right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our box grater and just scrape the flat side out. What we're trying to do is get rid of the outer skin and make it small. Okay, and that's what we just go ahead and discard the outer skin. And that's what we want. Okay, let me turn the chicken over. We'll let it go like that for another minute to brown, and then we'll move on. We'll be right back. Okay. Okay. So I just basically just turned it over. We'll let it go for another minute or so. So it continues to brown. Let's go ahead and continue with our vegetables. If you don't want to continue, if you don't want to do this, you can go ahead and get a canned tomato that's already been peeled and diced, about a cup or so. This is maybe a little bit more, maybe about a cup and a half. Right? So about that much. Right? Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut about half of this onion. We have the root end, we have the stem end. Cut right through both. We're not going to remove the stem end. And then we're going to go ahead and julienne this. Okay. And then 3 or 4 garlics. Remove the root end. Our cross chop. check our chicken one more time. Oh, I can smell that. Smells great. Okay, so we have that's good browning on the chicken. Okay. Let me transfer this. Let me lower the heat so we don't burn the fond at the bottom. Let me transfer that to our 9-inch baking pan here, 9 by 13. So all of that stuff that's stuck onto the bottom of the pan is flavor. We're going to go ahead and deglaze that by using the tomato. And get the heat back up there. This is about the only time that we actually have to fry something that's this juicy, like a tomato. Sofritos are I think the only ones that I've seen that done to. So anyway, you see how easily we have all of that fond at the bottom. See how easily that comes off now. So all of that flavor is basically getting incorporated into our tomato base right here. I just want to mention that our chicken, it does not have to be cooked at this point. We were just giving it a brown color to add a little bit more flavor. Right? The chicken will continue to cook in the oven. Alright, now let's turn up the heat a little bit more because we want to evaporate all of that liquid to concentrate the tomato flavor. And while it's doing that, let's go back to cutting our vegetables. Okay, we're going to use 1 red pepper and 1 green pepper. Just go ahead and cut it in half. Remove the insides and the membrane. Okay. Again, watch your fingers, your finger hold like this, knuckle out. The food doesn't move, it's the knife that moves. And last vegetable we're going to take care of is our green beans. Now the green beans, when you buy them at the store, try to look for green beans that have got you know, kind of firm and not wiggly, just to show that they're not too old. Just break off the stem end, alright, and then break them off in about 2-inch lengths. If it's gonna leave you with like that much left over, this is like 2 inches here, if it's gonna leave you this much, just do the whole thing. Right, like this. I'll just break this in half. This. Just break it in half. Well, this was kind of long. Yeah. Okay. And that's our green beans. All right, let's go take a look. This will take a little bit of time to lose all of that moisture. So just to save film, we'll go ahead and cut it off, and we'll come back when it's done. All right. Okay. The tomato has been cooking, and all the juices, as you can see, have been evaporated. So we've got a concentrated tomato base over here. We're going to go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of salt and a teaspoon of pepper to this. It may seem like a lot, but it'll basically compensate for the entire what do you call that? For the entire paella. And then we're going to add about 2 teaspoons of smoked pepper. Stir that around, and let me add our garlic and onion. We'll cook that down. So this mixture of tomato, onion, and garlic is called a sofrito. The proportions are different. It's not exactly always the half an onion and a pound and a half of tomato. The proportions can vary, but this is the basic recipe for it. And the onions doesn't have to be this long. I cut the onions like this because I want it to stand out when we're having the paella. That's also the reason why I cut the green, red and green pepper to stand out that way. Okay. We are done with that. We'll go ahead and transfer it onto the pan. Okay. Add a little bit more oil. And we're going to add green beans next. the green beans, the red pepper, and the green pepper, they could have been added onto this right away, and it'll cook fine. But it does add a little bit of flavor by just sautéing them just a little bit before we add it on. Saute this just for about a minute or so. We don't want to lose its crispiness. Next we'll add our red pepper and green pepper. Alright, so that should be good. Let me grab a pot holder here. Nice shot, Oliver. Mix this well. Okay, let's go back over here. Let's talk about one of the most important ingredients of paella, and that's the saffron. Saffron is the stigma of the crocus plant. Right? It's basically the flower that you have the little the center of the flower. You have these little stigmas coming out of it, and it's extremely expensive because it has to be hand picked. Okay, this one is 0.06 ounces, and it costs about $20 for this one container. Right? So I'll let you do the math on that one. But it really doesn't take much. You take just a small amount, and it's very potent, it's very flavorful. And those are the little threads or stigma of the crocus flower. Right? And the recipe for this, I put down to use 25 and count them exactly. One reason is because they are very potent. You don't really need very much to flavor all of our paella here. And second is because they're so expensive. So be conservative about it. Don't just take an entire $20 worth of the saffron and put it into one paella. Right? All we're going to be using is about that much. 25 pieces. Right? So where does this go? It goes right into our It goes right into our paella. Mix it well. All right. Okay. Next step is to basically add our quinoa. Our quinoa, this is 3 cups of quinoa already washed, or rinsed rather. Right? And we're just going to go ahead and add it on. Okay, and because we have 3 cups of quinoa here, we're going to use 6 cups of stock. I've had the stock boiling and then simmering, so I want to make sure that it didn't reduce so much liquid. So let's check it out. We're also going to remove the bay leaf from here. Okay, so we have 4 cups here. We have 1.5 cups, so what we're going to do is just fill up the remaining. We're going to fill up the difference with water. There we go. Before we add that, we're going to go ahead and just stir this around. Now, if you have a bigger roasting pan, go ahead and use that. I'm only using this 9x13 baking pan simply because I'm going by the assumption that this is the most common thing that people have at home, and so this is what I'm going to use. But if you have a bigger roasting pan, so that we're not playing this being careful so nothing splashes over the outside of the pan game, go ahead and use that. See, I don't have a lot of quinoa on this side. Okay. That's pretty evenly distributed. We'll add the remaining 2 cups. We'll get rid of the bay leaves. And then we're going to add rosemary. Just put it right on top. We're going to go ahead and take it off as soon as it's done cooking, but it'll infuse a lot of that flavor. Okay. and this goes into our oven. The oven is preheated to 375 degrees. Alright, and that should be ready about 30-45 minutes, maybe an hour. So we'll go ahead and check it out in about half an hour. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, 30 minutes has passed. Let's take a look at the paella. Okay, be careful of the steam when you do this. Steam is it's hotter than boiling water, really. So be careful. Okay. Now, basically, what we want to do is just to check. Okay, take a look. The volume of the paella has already gone up. We have the little white curly tails coming out of the paella. What we want to check is to see if there's any liquid coming out of the paella. Okay, there's a little bit more. Okay, not a problem. Not too bad. Let's go ahead and leave it in there. We'll leave it in there for another 10 minutes or so maybe. And come back. Okay, 10 minutes has passed. Let's take a look. Alrighty. I can smell it. It's amazing. We're good. Okay. Now, if you were going to take this to a potluck, leave the foil, the aluminum foil on until you get there. All right. Woo, look at that beauty. All right. Okay, this has done its job. It's given our stock flavor, and then that flavor has basically transferred all over to the quinoa. All right. It's a little hot. Normally I would let it wait and let all the steam come out, but I'm a little bit anxious, so let me go get a spoon. That smells amazing. Yep, I can see all the water is basically, there is no water at the bottom of the pan, so we are good to go. Let's see if I can. No more liquid. We're good to go. And then again, another indication is the quinoa has grown in size. We have the little white curly tails coming out of the individual seeds. So this is done. Okay. All right, take a try. Oh, that's delicious. Yum. The texture of the quinoa still has a nice bite to it, and green beans is still slightly crunchy. It's delicious. Now, traditional way to eat this actually, traditional way to eat this actually is with lemons. So, go ahead and we'll go ahead and cut some lemon wedges here. Right, just kind of add a little bit of lemon to it. That's really good. Yeah, adding the fresh lemon at the end, or just as you're serving it, and instead of adding it to the stock, it gives the paella a nice, vibrant, lemony flavor. Right? If the lemon was added onto the stock, then the stock would have, or that fresh lemony flavor would have been cooked off. Adding it in the end, very nice. Right? Well, thank you very much for joining me in this episode of Healthy Togetherness. I hope you tried the recipes. Leave me a comment if you, well, actually, whether or not you do, leave me a comment. But especially, if you do try it, leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Right? Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.